So let's see how we can get a SketchUp model over into Blender. You see I have a very basic layout. I'm going to draft something up 9 feet, another foot, and 6 inches. And maybe here I'm going to cut in a big window opening there. And maybe I do the same here. Just quickly cut it in there. Okay, perfect. So then we're going to save this one simply as a SketchUp file on your desktop. And then in Blender, I press A, press X to delete everything, go to File, Import, and in case you don't see SketchUp, import, maybe you forgot to activate this add-on, so when you type in Sketch, you will see SketchUp Importer, click on the check mark, and then you're good. Also click on Save User Settings. So File, Import, import SketchUp, Desktop, there's my space, import, and let's take a look. We can switch to imperial, so we can work with feet and inches, and let's compare. You see this is actually exactly the same SketchUp geometry. It's even positioned exactly the same way inside my scene. You see where he stands, there's my world center, and in Blender exactly the same. Here's even my camera. We brought in the camera from SketchUp. You see, same view. So that's actually pretty awesome. Okay, so let's maybe go one step further. Let's go to Warehouse, Get Models. Let's type in, I'm going to use Herman Miller. And maybe let's take a look maybe at this table. Download, okay. Let's place it. I would like to have it share. Actually, yes. So I would like to maybe bring over, let's use this chair. And nope, maybe there. Okay, perfect. Copy and paste. And let's rotate this one. Ooh, wrong rotation. There. Okay, so I click Save. So you want to press AA, delete everything, so with X, and then we go back, import, and import SketchUp scene. So obviously you only want to bring everything over into Blender after you're really done in SketchUp. But you see even here actually everything got brought over, including the geometry and, for example, the colors. So that's actually pretty nice and fantastic. Okay. So now I would like to put some colors onto my scene and then bring that over. So I click the color palette, maybe make those walls red, and maybe the floor, maybe this cream color, maybe the steps we make orange. Okay, and then save. Go back to Blender, File, Import, and where are my colors? The colors aren't there. Okay, so there's actually one limitation, maybe one certain workflow we have to be considerate. The colors basically come over not based on a face, but actually based on a group or component. So if I go back to SketchUp, you see currently also my complete layout here, my walls and floor, everything is just one geometry. And in general, that's not necessarily the way how you should work anyway. For example, the walls and the floor, the ceiling, everything should be individual objects. But we can actually still texture the scene and bring this over into Blender exactly the same we want. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually selecting logical faces. For example, all my maybe here all my wall faces there and here, and for example this one and this one, same there, and there. So, and then all this I can actually simply turn into a group by pressing Control G or Apple G, make a group. Perfect. So, and then this group I, for example, apply this color to. Now here, those are my two floors. So I click those, Control or Apple G, sand color. And for example, this stuff here, maybe are my steps, Control G, Apple G, and maybe make this orange there. Save. Then let's go to Blender, AA, X, File and Import. There. And there you see it. Now all the colors were actually brought over. So that's pretty nice. So you see the colors don't necessarily work on a per face basis. If you want to bring it over directly from SketchUp, then the colors have to be applied to the group, or they have to be applied to the component. And that's the same also with all the Herman Miller furniture, for example. So if you click it, you see this is actually a group or a component. And you see they are all individual nested elements inside. And all those objects are colored. Okay. Now let's have a little bit more fun. I would like to maybe add a floor texture to this floor. So maybe let's go to wood. Let's see what we have here. Let's see. Oh, what's up with this one? Okay. So you see another nice thing by having this grouped, I can drag this texture onto whatever face, and then all faces that are part of that group are actually textured instantly as well. Let's see, do we have anything for the walls? Let's see, textiles, obviously not, bricks. Maybe for the moment, just let's keep it this way. Okay. Good. So I'll click Save. Let's go to Blender, AA, X, Import. And I don't really want to bring in my camera all the time. Import. Okay, so see, we don't really see much. So let's go on to rendered. And you see there's actually a little bit of color, but kind of like the textures are missing. So we have to help Blender here a little bit. So I'm going to start with the wall. And then I click, after I clicked on the wall object, in properties I click on the material button. And then I see, for example, it says brick texture. And if I get a little bit closer and then do my rendered view, I can see that there is actually a brick texture. It is just way too small. So I have to change the scale here. So, and this will be a little bit different to solve than, for example, in SketchUp, but it has actually also the option we can rotate textures. So I'm going to slice my viewport, and then here, this one I switch to the node editor. And what you see down here is actually the material. Instead of having like a pull down menu, it simply shows the modules being connected via lines. So we have an image input that's being put into a diffuse material, and that's being fed into the material output, meaning what's going to be rendered. And what I would like to do is be able to change the scale of this image texture. So I can go to the left and then, for example, press Shift A or go to Add. And then, for example, first select Texture Coordinates. Shift A again, Vector and Mapping. And just wait for a moment and I will explain what all this stuff means. Press N, G. See, actually here the move command is the same like in 3D space. Really nice. So I can first, if I want to, for example, connect UV to there and there to there. Okay, and then take a look. Let's maybe go to this view and then maybe 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Oh, look what we have. It gets bigger, 0.01, 0.01. So actually the scale factor was simply off. So maybe 0.05. Yeah, okay. So what does this actually do? The UV, I will go into this at one point a little bit more specific, but this is basically establishing the coordinate, telling the software how these textures should be glued over the geometry. And then the mapping, as you can see, we can move, we can rotate, and we can scale the texture. And then the vector, well, that's basically the orientation information that's being put into the image node so that this texture, the brick texture which we're going to use, is scaled accordingly. Okay. Nice thing is, once you have it done it for one material, we can just click those and then Control C, copy. I click on my floor. I have the same here. Control V to paste it in. Drag it to there. Zoom in a little bit. There's actually my wood floor, as you can see. And maybe here the scale is a little bit too small, 2.5. Okay, maybe 0.1. Yeah. Okay. So you see then this way we can override, for example, the scaling factor. Now maybe with the wood floor actually, now we would like to swap out actually the texture. We would like to use something different. So I have actually on my desktop a small wood texture here. This one I would like to use. So, and there are two ways now how we can swap this one out. Either I go to image texture here, wait there, and then click on this icon to delete the input, click on open, go to desktop, wood texture, and open. Or I can do the same here, click on the X, and you see something is magenta. That means the material should use a texture, but there is an image missing to define the texture. And now you see actually for this type of texture, the scale is off. So maybe 0.05, 0.05. Yeah, that's for example better now. And now I don't really like this brick texture everywhere. So let's click this wall, delete, open. And for example, here I have a seamless indoor wall texture. And maybe now I might need to zoom in a little bit so I can see actually that texture. And you see there looks like a small plaster structure. And the detail level is okay. Good. Well, maybe now actually I would like for the outside a different material. Now I could go back to SketchUp and change all the stuff. Maybe I don't want to do it. I have everything already here. So what I'm going to do is simply apply now a different material to the outside faces. But first, let's actually go and take a look maybe for a nice outside stone texture we could use. So we want to look for seamless and stone, and maybe, I don't know, maybe let's select this one. There's not too much highlights, etc. Right click, save image as, and to the desktop. Let's go back to Blender. Okay, so we have to go into edit mode. In SketchUp, you double click, for example, on a group or a component, and then you can go and edit the faces. Blender is a little bit different. We can switch between the edit and the object mode. So I go into edit, or I could press tab and tab. You see it enters and exits. And then you see it selects all the faces, and I press actually first Alt J to clean up everything a little bit, and then I press A to deselect everything. And then here I switch to face select and don't make the opposite faces visible. You see here there are some faces visible. They actually shine through from the other side. So now with Shift and left mouse button click, I can click on those triangles. And then nicely select all those faces I need there. And you know what? Actually, I do the same here for those cap faces. Perfect. Okay, so now I would like to create a new material for that. So, for example, here in the material slot, now I click a plus icon. And I have my brick material. I could actually apply the brick material here again. Click Assign. Press Tab to leave the edit mode. And then actually click Render. And you don't really see much difference. Because the original component uses this stucco texture, and then the new selection of faces uses the same texture. But what we could do here, you see there's a 2, and by applying the same material, it copies over also the UV mapping. So my geometry is perfectly textured in terms of mapping images over those walls. So I used actually this brick tumble kind of like as a template, but then I would like to give it a different material. So if I change here the material for all walls, the material will be changed. That's not what I want. So that's the reason why here I can click on 2. 2 actually means 2 objects are using this material. So click on it. And maybe here I could even call this one wall outside if I want. The naming doesn't really matter. It should be logical to you. And then here I click the X, click Open, Desktop, and here's this image texture, Open. And there you see now how actually we're going to use that type of material for the outside. And then maybe here we would like to change the scale a little bit. For those who like math, we could even do a little bit like this. So let's Shift A, Math, add, multiply, and just ignore what I said. I thought this works. It doesn't. Okay. Okay. Let's go back. 0 point there. That's maybe a little bit too much. So there's actually also the ability to do this. You saw that? So you don't really want 1 by 1 by 1. I click left mouse button and drag down to the last one. And then actually it switches into edit mode, and you see I'm editing XYZ values all at once. Enter, and there. It changes then the value for all. Now I don't really like actually the stucco texture I have here. And maybe this text doesn't even make sense anymore, so maybe I call this wall inside there. go back to here. Let's go to seamless wall, and let's see, maybe we can find something that's more interesting. So when you find seamless textures, you have to be really careful that those textures can nicely be tiled. They also should look not cartoonish. They don't have, for example, this one is very cartoonish. Shouldn't have too much repetitive elements. So with repetitive elements, for example, what I mean, let's use this one actually here for a moment. And save image, stone wall, go back, and delete, open, desktop, there. There you can see actually how this tiles, really bad. This texture actually tiles as well, but it is made in a way so that the tiling is less noticeable. Because if you pay attention, you see here are the repetitive bricks, but you don't really see that much. So that's the reason why, for example, this particular texture is not really very good. So maybe let's see if there's anything in terms of wallpaper that's acceptable. You know, this one is interesting. Let's take a look at that one. So save texture. Just call it image, okay. Desktop and image. There. See now how it tiles. Let's take a look. Save. And oh, I forgot what the name was, so I can click on the preview. Oh, there it is. Okay, open. And this is pretty dark. Let's zoom in a little bit. Oh, it's also way too small. So maybe here again, click and drag down. Maybe 0.1. Yeah, this is better. Okay. No, actually, I don't really like that this texture is also applied to where, for example, my window would sit in. So I go into edit mode, then press AA to deselect everything in case something is selected, and then shift and left mouse button, select those faces there. Okay, good. And then maybe here I'm making new material. I could, for example, simply load maybe one of the walls, let's say wall inside, assign. Don't forget to assign, because now I really say this wall inside material, just assign to those faces I have selected. And maybe I call this one window frame. Okay, leave edit mode, then we can actually stop this, because this one should have been wall inside, window frame, there. And maybe that one I just really would like to just be pure white. So I could, for example, drag this one out. And you see whatever material I click here, my nodes actually change. So let's make a rendering. And there you see now how this actually updates. Okay. So that, for example, as a small intro in how you can get your SketchUp model into Blender, and then actually also have different materials we can apply to different faces, change the materials, change maybe the scale. Maybe for the wood, let's do that actually as the last part. So I'm going to make this one actually a tick bigger, so maybe 0.3 there. And now I would like to rotate it. So maybe along the Z-axis, 45 degrees. Let's go into top view. Maybe there we can see it better. There, 25. Here we see now how actually the material is being rotated. Maybe let's actually go back and look for seamless wood floor texture. And well, this one looks kind of rustic. Okay, save. Seamless wood floor. Okay, and let's go back to Blender. So then here, this one could even actually do funny things like this. So in case you don't want to swap out all the time the texture, maybe you would like to have an option included. I just click this image texture and I press Shift D to make a copy. Then here I click X, open desktop, and here's my seamless wood texture. And then I can plug this one in. So you see, obviously you can only use one texture logically, but this way you can have different settings or variations. Number 1, number 2, or number 1. See, so it's actually really, really nice. And maybe the mapping here doesn't really work, so I can then do something like this. So here I might have to change this, so maybe 0.1. Yeah, that feels okay size-wise. So you see, you can, and that's a nice thing about the software, you can basically have multiple materials or material definitions inside one material, kind of like with textures here, and then swap between them. So it's a very, very modular system. Obviously, the interface is a little bit more complex than SketchUp, but at the end, SketchUp can't really do much besides some of the really basic tasks. But with a little bit of practice, this becomes very, very easy. You just have to memorize where those functions are, how it works, and then the more you do it, the more fluid you get at it.